The market smelled of smoke, sweat, and fear. It was not a normal market where fruits or tools were sold. Here living beings stood behind iron bars waiting to be taken away like objects. Shouts filled the air. Buyers argued about prices, and chains rattled with every step. Among them was a girl, her skin pale blue with faint glowing lines. She stood with her head lowered, her wrists bound with metal cuffs. She did not speak, she did not resist, her eyes were empty. Trained since birth to wait for commands, in her mind there was no question. No choice, only obedience. She lived only for orders, and her body had been trained for one thing, to serve mating demands without thought. Crowds passed by. Some aliens laughed. Some poked at her through the bars. One asked, "Does she obey without hesitation?" Another bragged, "She has no will, she cannot say no." The traders laughed. Proud of what they had shaped in that noisy place, a human walked in. His clothes were dusty from travel, his eyes sharp but calm. He was not like the others who looked at the cages with hungry grins. He stopped, staring at the girl behind the bars. His brow tightened as he watched her stillness. She did not look back. She had been trained never to raise her eyes unless ordered. The trader noticed the human staring and grinned. "Ah, human, you have good taste," he said. "This one is special, never disobeyed, never spoke a word unless told." He pulled on the chain, and the girl stepped forward without question. Her movements were mechanical. Like a puppet, the human's jaw clenched. His voice was low. "Why is she like this?" The trader laughed. "Like what?" "She is perfect, no mind, no will, only body." "That is what buyers want, is it not?" The human did not answer. His eyes softened as he looked at the girl again. She was not looking at him, she was staring at the ground, as if her life was only the space beneath her feet. The crowd gathered. Curious why a human would hesitate, some shouted, "Buy her or leave," others mocked. "Perhaps humans are too weak to handle such slaves," laughter rang out. Loud and cruel, the human finally spoke, his voice steady. "She is not a thing." The words cut through the air like a blade. Silence spread for a moment. Then the crowd roared with laughter. "Not a thing? She was made for orders," one alien jeered. "She cannot think, cannot feel," another spat. "She belongs to the chain," the trader said firmly, pulling her back, but the human stepped closer. His eyes did not leave hers. He said softly, "Do you hear me? You are more than this." The girl flinched. Her body trembled. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Her mind could not understand, but her heart, long buried under commands, stirred with something unknown. The trader grew annoyed. "Enough of this nonsense. Do you want her or not?" The human's voice rose, strong enough for all to hear. "Yes, but not as you think. She is not a slave. She comes with me. Free." The market erupted, shouts, curses, laughter. Some shouted, "Mad human, he does not understand." Others warned, "You will regret this, she belongs to the system." But the human did not flinch. He placed his credits down, more than the price demanded. The trader, greedy, took the deal. Thinking the human a fool, he unlocked the cage. The chains clattered to the ground. The girl stepped forward slowly, her legs weak, her eyes still downcast. She expected new orders, but instead, the human only reached out his hand and said, "Come." One word, not as a command, but as an invitation. The girl froze. Confusion filled her empty mind. Was this truly an order, or something else? Her heart beat fast, a feeling she had never known before. The crowd watched, some mocking, some whispering. The laughter grew louder. "The human will learn. She cannot change," they sneered. "She is nothing but chains." But deep inside her, for the first time, a small spark flickered. A voice in her soul asked a question she had never dared before. "What if I am more?" The night closed in on the market. The human led her away as the crowd laughed and cursed. But they did not see her trembling hands, or the way her empty eyes now blinked with the faintest light of awakening. She lived only for orders, but something had just shifted, and the galaxy had no idea what storm had begun. The night after the market was restless. The alien streets glowed with pale lights. Merchants packing up their cages, guards patrolling the dark alleys, and whispers spreading about the human who had bought a chain-bound girl only to call her free. Some laughed, calling him a fool. Others warned that he had broken a silent law. Inside a small, dim shelter, the human sat across from the girl. A bowl of warm broth rested in front of her. Steam rising gently, she stared at it, motionless. Her hands rested on her knees, waiting for his command. Her heart raced because silence was dangerous. In her world, not moving until ordered was survival. The human pushed the bowl closer, his voice calm. Eat. Her fingers shook as she lifted the spoon. Her training screamed that she should wait for exact instructions. How fast to eat. How much when to stop. But he gave her none. He only sat quietly, watching her with patient eyes. She took a small sip, the taste of real food, not the cold ration blocks of the pens spread across her tongue. For a moment, she almost forgot to breathe. Something inside her chest stirred. It was not an order, it was not fear. It was something strange, comfort. But her mind snapped back, "Am I doing wrong?" She whispered. Her voice was dry, unused, afraid. The human leaned forward, his tone gentle but firm. "There is no wrong here. You choose how to eat. You choose everything." Her head tilted slightly, as if the words were in another language. "Choose?" She repeated. The word was unfamiliar, heavy. Before he could explain further, the door burst open. 3 alien enforcers entered. Their eyes glowed under the metal helmets, and chains rattled in their hands. One growled, "Human, you broke the law. Return the property." The girl froze. Her body shook violently. She expected him to hand her over. She had seen this before. Runaways always dragged back, punished, broken worse than before. Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered, "I will go. Please don't fight." But the human stood. He stepped in front of her, shielding her small frame with his own body. His voice rang clear. "She is not property." The room went silent for a heartbeat. Then the enforcers laughed, a cruel sound. "Not property?" One mocked. "She was born for this. She has no will, no right. You dare speak against the order of the masters?" The human's jaw tightened. His hand rested near the old metal tool at his belt. Not a weapon, just a piece of scrap steel. But his stance carried defiance. "She has a right. More than you, more than me. She is alive, and that is enough." The girl gasped softly. Her eyes widened. No one had ever said such words about her. Not even in secret whispers. To live was not enough in her world. To live meant to obey, but now this human stood tall. Declaring otherwise, the enforcers stepped forward. Chains clattered. "You will die for this." "Human." The human's eyes burned with fire. "Then I die standing. Not kneeling." The tension snapped. The enforcers lunged. The human grabbed the first by the wrist and twisted. The chain fell from the alien's grip. The second swung a heavy rod. The human blocked with his scrap steel, sparks flying. The room filled with the crash of metal and the girl's frightened breaths. She wanted to crawl, to hide, but her eyes locked on him. The way he fought was not like the cruel masters. He did not fight for power, he fought for her life, for her choice. One enforcer crashed into the table, broth spilling across the floor. The human stood over him, breathing hard, his voice steady. "Leave or face more than defeat." The enforcers glared but backed away, muttering threats. "You will regret this, human." The masters will hear of this defiance. Then they vanished into the shadows, leaving the door hanging open. The girl clutched her own wrists, staring at him in shock. "Why?" she whispered. "Why not give me back?" The human turned, his chest rising and falling, his face softening as he looked at her. "Because you are not theirs, you are yours." Her lips parted. Trembling, she tried to speak, but no words came. Something burned in her chest, painful yet warm. Her world had been built on commands, but his words tore holes in that prison. He sat beside her again, his voice calm. "One day, you will understand. For now, just know this. No one owns you." Her hands shook as she touched the chain marks on her wrists. The words echoed in her head, clashing with years of obedience. Could it be true? Could she really be hers? Outside, the city buzzed with laughter and gossip. But inside that small shelter, a storm of change was rising. The girl did not yet know what love was, but for the first time she felt a choice whisper in her soul, and the human's defiance had made it possible. The shelter stood at the edge of the alien quarter. Its walls were cracked, its roof patched with metal sheets. To the city it was nothing more than a forgotten place, but to the human and the girl, it was the only corner where she could breathe without chains. Inside, the girl sat on a rough blanket, her hands folded tightly. Her eyes scanned the room as if searching for hidden masters. Every creak of the wood, every distant shout in the street made her body flinch. Fear had been trained into her bones. She could not remember a time when it was not there. The human placed bread and fruit in front of her. "Eat when you want," he said simply. Then he sat down on the other side of the room. Giving her space, she stared at the food. Her mind told her to wait for the signal, to wait for the order if she touched it without command. Punishment would follow, but minutes passed. The human said nothing. He only watched the flicker of the small lamp on the wall. Her stomach growled, hunger twisting inside slowly. With trembling fingers, she picked up the bread and tore a small piece. She ate it, her body braced for pain, for shouts, but nothing came. The human gave her only a soft nod. Tears filled her eyes. She had eaten because she wanted to, not because she was told. It was such a small act. Yet it felt like breaking a chain thicker than steel. That night she tried to sleep. Her body curled on the blanket, but her eyes stayed open. She waited for the sound of footsteps, for the return of the enforcers, for the cruel hands to drag her back. Instead, she heard the slow breathing of the human. He slept sitting against the wall, one arm resting near the door, guarding her without chains. The thought confused her. Why protect what you own? Why guard without control? Her chest tightened with strange warmth by morning. Whispers had already spread through the quarter. The human had defied the enforcers. He had bought a girl only to let her sit freely. Some called it madness. Others called it weakness, and in the shadows, hunters were already moving. When the girl stepped outside for the first time without cuffs, she felt the burn of 100 eyes. Aliens stared, some with disgust, some with hunger, and some with curiosity. She lowered her gaze quickly. Her instincts screamed she should crawl, obey, hide, but the human walked beside her. Tall and steady, his presence was like a shield. "Lift your head," he whispered. "No one here owns you." Her breath caught. Her neck felt heavy as she slowly raised her gaze. The streets blurred before her. Sounds rushed around her. It was terrifying, but also freeing for the first time. She saw the world not from the ground, but standing beside someone. They bought supplies quietly. Dried food, clean water, cloth to repair the leaks in the shelter. Yet the crowd's whispers followed them everywhere. That's the one. The human who broke the law. The girl who should not be free. By the time they returned to the shelter, the girl's heart pounded with fear. She sat shaking, whispering, "They will come. They will take me back. You will be punished." The human crouched in front of her, his eyes steady. "Listen, they may come, they may threaten, but I will not give you back." Her lips trembled. "Why?" "I am nothing," his voice sharpened, cutting through her fear. "You are not nothing, you are someone. You just don't see it yet." Her chest tightened. A feeling like fire spread inside her, painful and heavy. She pressed her hands against her heart, whispering, "Someone." The word felt unreal on her tongue. That night, a knock thundered on the door. The girl froze. Her breath came fast and shallow. She wanted to hide under the blanket, but the human stood calmly. He opened the door slowly. Two strangers entered, cloaked and hooded. Their eyes scanned the girl quickly. One of them spoke, voice low. "You have made enemies, human. The masters will not forgive. Give her back before they come with more." The human shook his head. "No." The stranger narrowed his eyes. "Then you must understand you are breaking more than a law. You are breaking a system built for centuries. Do you think you can fight it alone?" The girl's heart nearly stopped. His words felt like doom. How could one human fight a world of chains? But the human answered without hesitation. His voice carried steel. "Then I will fight it. Because no system that kills choice deserves to stand." The cloaked figure studied him for a long moment. Then one whispered, "Be careful. The masters already send hunters. They will come soon." They vanished into the night, leaving only fear behind. The girl clutched her arms, whispering, "They will kill you because of me." The human placed a hand gently on her shoulder, his tone softer. "No, they will come because I chose this. Not you." Her eyes filled with tears. For so long, her life had been only about obedience, punishment, and silence. Now she was inside a small shelter that felt forbidden to the world outside, and yet for the first time, she felt like her heartbeat was her own. But danger was rising with every whisper. The hunters would not wait long, and soon, the human's defiance would be tested more than ever. The days passed slowly in the forbidden shelter. The human repaired the leaking roof, patched the broken door, and shared his food with the girl. He worked during the day, carrying crates and tools in the alien quarter, and at night he returned with bread or broth, placing it before her without command. Every night she sat by the dim lamp staring at him in silence. Her body still trembled whenever she heard footsteps outside, but something inside her was beginning to change. Her mind no longer waited for orders with the same blind obedience. Instead, questions began to grow, small, fragile questions that frightened her more than chains ever did. One evening, as the wind howled through the cracked window, she finally spoke. Her voice was soft. "Why do you not command me?" The human paused. He looked up from sharpening a small knife, his eyes steady but kind. "Because you are not mine to command." The girl's heart raced. The words confused her. Her life had been nothing but orders: when to eat, when to sleep, when to move, when to obey. Without orders she felt lost, but with him she felt something else. Something that made her chest burn. She lowered her gaze, whispering, "If I am not yours, then what am I?" The human set the knife aside and walked closer. He crouched to meet her eyes. "You are you?" he said gently. "No one owns that." Her breath caught. Her throat felt tight. No one had ever spoken like this. To her masters she had been property. To the traders she had been a price tag. To buyers she had been only a body, but to this human she was herself. That night she lay awake, her heart pounding against her chest. The word "you" echoed inside her mind like a strange melody. She touched her face, her hands, her glowing skin, whispering the words again. "I am me." It was terrifying, yet beautiful. The next morning, while he worked outside, she tried something dangerous. She stood up, walked across the room, and touched the bread on the table without waiting for permission. Her fingers shook, her body braced for punishment. But when nothing happened, she almost cried. She had chosen to move, chosen to eat. It was small, but it felt like breaking 1,000 invisible chains. When the human returned, he noticed the crumbs on her lips. A smile touched his face, but he said nothing, letting her hold the victory for herself. But the world outside was not quiet. Hunters had begun searching the streets, asking questions. The girl heard whispers through the thin walls. "The human hides her. The masters will take her back soon." Her fear returned. She sat close to him one night and whispered, "They will find me. They will hurt you. I should leave." The human shook his head firmly. "No, you are not leaving. This is your choice now, choice." The word stabbed deep into her heart, burning with both fear and longing. She had never been allowed to choose, yet now he gave it freely, like air to breathe. Tears slid down her cheeks. "What if I choose wrong?" she asked, her voice breaking. He gently wiped a tear from her cheek, his voice soft. "Then you learn. That is what it means to live." Her chest tightened with warmth so strong it hurt. She wanted to ask more, wanted to understand why he looked at her with such patience, why his eyes did not burn with cruelty, but with something softer, something that made her body feel light, and her heart feel heavy all at once. That night, as she lay under the old blanket, she whispered into the darkness, "Is this love?" She did not know the meaning fully, but she could feel it growing like fire inside her. But peace never lasted long. At dawn, a stone shattered the window. A message was tied to it, written in harsh letters. "Return what is ours, or face blood." The human read it silently, then crumpled it in his hand. His voice was calm but strong. "They are afraid. That means we are winning." The girl's fear mixed with confusion. Winning? Against who? Against what? She was only one broken being. Why risk everything for her? That evening, as shadows grew outside, she gathered the courage to ask, "Why do you fight for me? Why not let me go? You owe me nothing." The human looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were heavy with both pain and strength. "Because once, someone fought for me when I thought I was nothing. I will not let the chains take you." Her lips parted, her heart beating faster than ever. In that moment, she understood he was not protecting her because she was useful. He was protecting her because she mattered. She touched her chest, whispering again, "Love." The word no longer felt strange, it felt real, alive. Outside, the city burned with whispers of rebellion. Hunters prepared their weapons. Masters tightened their grip. But inside the shelter, something even more dangerous was awakening. Not a weapon, not a rebellion, but a heart. A heart learning to beat for itself, and once it awoke fully, the galaxy would never be the same. The nights grew colder in the shelter. The girl now slept more easily, not because fear had vanished, but because the human's presence gave her strength. She had begun to eat without waiting for orders, to speak when her thoughts pressed against her lips, and to lift her head when walking beside him. These were small changes, but they were more dangerous than any weapon. Yet danger was never far. Word of her defiance spread quickly. In the city's dark corners, masters whispered in anger, They had built their empire on obedience. If one slave girl learned to choose, what if others followed? That thought alone filled them with dread. So they sent the hunters. It was late evening when the first shadow appeared near the shelter. The human felt it before he saw it. His instincts screamed danger. He placed his hand near the knife at his belt, his eyes scanning the street. The girl noticed his tension and whispered, "They are here, aren't they?" He nodded. "Yes, but you are not alone anymore." The knock came. Heavy and final, the wooden door rattled. A deep voice growled, "Open, human, we have come for what belongs to us." The girl's body froze. Her hands clutched the blanket. Her chest rose and fell in quick breaths. She had heard those voices before. They were the hunters, merciless, trained to break escapees. To be caught meant pain worse than death. The human opened the door slowly, his stance calm but firm. 3 hunters stood outside, armored in black metal, their eyes glowing under helmets. Chains hung from their belts, weapons strapped to their backs. One stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You have something that is ours, hand her over." "Now?" The human's voice cut through the air, steady as stone. "She is not yours." The hunters laughed. The sound like iron grinding. "Do not speak of rights, human. She was born for orders. She cannot choose. She has no freedom. Do not play games with us." The human stepped aside just enough to reveal her. She stood behind him, trembling. But her eyes no longer stared at the floor. They locked onto the hunters, fear shining but mixed with something new, strength. The hunters grinned cruelly. "See? She obeys you like she obeyed us. She cannot change." But before the human could reply, the girl did something unthinkable. She stepped forward, her voice shaking but loud enough to be heard. "I am not yours." The silence that followed was heavy. The hunters froze, their mocking grins fading. They stared at her as if a statue had come to life. "What did you say?" One hissed, her legs trembled. Her arms shook, but she repeated louder this time. "I am not yours." The human's heart swelled with pride. He looked at her not as property, but as someone awakening. The hunters snarled, rage boiling in their eyes. "This is your doing, human. You filled her with poison. You will die for this insult." The human pulled his knife free, the blade small compared to their weapons, but his stance unshaken. "Then come," he said. "But know this, if you want her, you step over my body first." The fight exploded. Chains cracked through the air. The first hunter swung at the human, but he ducked and drove his shoulder into the alien's chest. Knocking him against the wall, the second lunged with a blade, sparks flying as steel met steel. The girl cried out, wanting to help, but fear locked her legs. The third hunter circled toward her, his hand reaching for the chain. "You cannot run, slave," he spat. But she did not retreat. Her breath came fast. Her mind screamed to obey, to kneel, to beg. But something else pushed forward, stronger than fear. "I am not a slave," she shouted, her voice breaking like thunder. The hunter froze for a moment. Stunned by her defiance, that second was enough. The human slammed into him from behind, knocking him to the floor. The knife flashed, and the hunter roared in pain. The fight dragged on, blood and sweat filling the room. At last the hunters retreated, beaten but not destroyed. One spat as he stumbled into the night. "This is not over, human. The masters will send more. They will burn this place to the ground." The door slammed shut, silence filling the shelter once again. The girl collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her voice trembled. "I spoke back. I chose." The human knelt beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. His voice warm. "Yes, you chose. That was your strength. Not mine." Her body shook with sobs, not of fear but of release for the first time. Her voice had broken the silence forced on her since birth. For the first time she had said no outside. The city stirred with whispers. The hunter's defeat spread quickly. Some mocked, some feared, but others slaves, broken and chained, listened with wide eyes. A girl had said no, and deep in the shelter, she pressed her hand to her chest, whispering the word she was still learning to believe. Free, but freedom came with danger. The hunters would return, stronger, crueler, and the masters would not stop until both the human and the girl were crushed. Still, for the first time, she did not tremble at the thought. She had chosen to stand, and she would again. The morning after the hunters' attack was heavy with silence. The shelter smelled of blood and smoke. The human cleaned his knife quietly, his movements steady but his eyes sharp with thought. The girl sat near the corner, her knees pulled to her chest. Her body still trembled from the night before, But something inside her was different. For the first time, her voice had risen against her master's. For the first time, she had said no. That word still echoed in her heart, stronger than chains. But danger pressed closer. By midday, word spread through the quarter. The masters themselves had sent envoys. Not just hunters now, but officials cloaked in gold and shadow. They called for a gathering in the central hall. Demanding the human appear, the girl's fear grew. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Do not go, they will kill you. They will take me back." The human placed a steady hand on her shoulder, his voice calm. "If we do not go, they will burn this shelter to the ground. They must hear your choice." Not their orders, her chest tightened. My choice. The word still felt heavy, but when he said it, it gave her strength. That evening, the central hall filled with a crowd. Masters, traders, guards, and even slaves were forced to watch. At the front, tall figures in golden robes sat, their eyes hard and merciless. The human entered with the girl walking beside him. Gasps spread across the room. The sight of her standing freely, without chains, shook even the slaves. The headmaster rose, his voice echoing, "Human, you have broken the law. You took property and corrupted it with lies. Return the girl. Or face death," the human's voice rang clear. "She is not property." Laughter and jeers filled the hall. The master sneered. "She was born for orders. She has no will, no right to speak. She belongs to the chain." The human stepped aside. His hand gestured toward her, his voice steady. "Then let her speak." The hall fell silent. The crowd stared at her, expecting her to tremble, expecting her to bow. Her legs shook, her chest burned with fear. But she remembered the bread she ate without order, the night she whispered "free," and the moment she stood against the hunters. Her voice broke the silence. "I am not yours." The words struck the hall like lightning. Gasps echoed, masters shouted in rage, traders cursed, but the slaves, the slaves, lifted their heads in shock. Their eyes widened. Some even dared to whisper to each other. "She speaks." The headmaster slammed his staff against the floor. "Silence! She is broken. She knows nothing. Speak again, girl. Obey." Every muscle in her body screamed to obey. Years of training dragged at her soul. But then she felt the human's presence beside her. Strong, steady, unshaken, she raised her head, her eyes locking with the master's, and said louder, "I will not obey." The hall erupted. Some shouted, some jeered, some whispered in awe. The slaves pressed forward, their chains clattering as hope flickered in their eyes. The human's jaw tightened as guards stepped forward, their blades gleaming. The master snarled, "You see? She is poisoned. She must be broken or destroyed. Human, you will die for this insult." But the girl stepped in front of the human, her trembling hand raised as if to shield him. Her voice rang clear for all to hear. "If you kill him, you kill me too." "I choose him." The hall froze. The masters stared in shock. Never in memory had one of their slaves spoken of choice. Never had one declared loyalty without command. Her words spread like fire. Slaves gasped, some crying, some whispering, "Choose." She chose. For them, the word was a dream they had buried long ago. The masters roared in fury. "This ends now." Guards advanced, weapons raised. The human gripped his knife, ready to fight to the last breath. But the girl's voice carried again, stronger this time. "No, I'm not afraid of you anymore." Her defiance was louder than steel. The guards hesitated, their eyes shifted. The crowd of slaves pressed closer, murmurs turning into shouts. The balance of the room cracked. For the first time, the masters looked uncertain. They had ruled with fear, but now one girl's choice had shaken their hall. The headmaster spat in anger. "Take them both." Before this spreads, but before the guards could move, one slave shouted, "She is right." Another cried, "We are not theirs." The murmurs rose into a storm. Chains rattled. Voices grew bold. The hall trembled with the sound of defiance. The human tightened his grip, his voice steady as he looked at her. "You just lit the fire." And deep in her heart she realized the truth. Her choice had not only freed her, it had shaken the walls of the world around her. Chaos filled the central hall. Slaves shouted, guards pushed forward, and the masters roared in fury. The girl stood trembling but unbroken, her words still echoing. "I choose him." It was not just a declaration, it was a spark that caught the hearts of those who had forgotten what choice felt like. The human stepped closer to her, his knife steady, his voice calm even in the storm. "Stay behind me," he whispered. But she shook her head, her voice trembling. "No, I stand with you." The masters slammed their staffs, their golden robes swirling with rage. "This rebellion will end here. Kill the human, break the girl. Silence the chains forever." Guards surged forward. Their blades flashed in the torchlight. The slaves gasped, many shrinking back. But some lifted their heads, their voices rising in shouts. Their chains rattled, echoing like drums of war. The human fought fiercely, steel clashing against alien metal. Sparks flew as he blocked a strike aimed at the girl. He pushed one guard back, kicked another to the floor, but they were too many. His breath came heavy, his arms strained. Blood marked his sleeve where a blade had grazed him. The girl's heart pounded. Fear screamed inside her to kneel, to hide, to obey, but love pushed louder, stronger. She stepped forward, placing herself between the guards and the human. Her arms spread wide, her voice breaking. "No more!" The guards hesitated, their blades hovered in the air. The hall grew silent for a heartbeat. The masters sneered. "Foolish creature, do you think words can stop us?" Her eyes glistened with tears, but her voice grew firm. "I was taught to live only for orders, to give my body without question, to breathe only when commanded. But now I know something stronger. I know love." The crowd gasped, even the slaves fell silent. The word was dangerous, forbidden, a word never spoken in the Hall of Masters. The girl turned to the human, her voice soft but clear. "You showed me I am more than chains, more than commands. You taught me what it means to be free, and I choose you." The human's chest tightened. His hand lowered slightly, not in surrender, but in awe. He whispered, "And I choose you." The slaves erupted, their voices rose. No longer whispers but cries, "We choose." Chains slammed against the floor as fists pounded. Their eyes blazed with hope. The guards faltered, their loyalty shaken. For years they had ruled with fear. But now the hall itself trembled with the sound of freedom. The masters shouted in rage, "Silence them now!" But it was too late. A wave of slaves surged forward. Their chains became weapons, their voices stronger than the masters' commands. The guards were overwhelmed, not by the human's blade alone, but by the storm of choice that swept the hall. The girl stood beside the human, her body weak but her spirit blazing. For the first time she felt alive. Her trembling hand reached for his, and he held it tightly. Together they stood as the hall shook with rebellion. By dawn, the masters had fled into the shadows, their golden robes torn, the guards scattered. The hall belonged not to them, but to those who had found their voices. The slaves, now free, gathered around the human and the girl. Their eyes wide with gratitude, some whispered, "She gave us courage." Others murmured, "The human showed us love." The girl felt her chest swell. She had been nothing but property, but now she was something greater, not because of commands, but because she had chosen. She turned to the human, whispering, "What will happen now?" He smiled faintly, weary but strong. "Now you live, not for orders, not for fear, but for yourself, and if you choose me, then we walk this path together." Her eyes filled with tears, but these were not tears of pain, they were of joy. She nodded, her voice steady. "I choose you," again and again. The freed slaves cheered. Their voices carried across the city, a sound the masters could not silence, a sound of awakening. The girl pressed her forehead to the human's chest, her voice a whisper only he could hear. "So this is love." He held her close, answering softly, "Yes, this is love." And as the sun rose over the alien city, the world had changed, not because of armies, not because of power, but because one girl learned to say no, and one human taught her to say yes to herself. What love really meant was no longer a secret. It was a fire spreading from heart to heart, burning brighter than any chain could hold.